Morning, everyone. Basically, my presentation is usually geared towards you guys. So to say I'm preaching to the choir and preaching to the lecturers, trying to motivate them. And basically, this presentation would be done face to face during a normal workshop. Let's say intro to Moodle for those using Moodle, intro to Sakai for us who's using Sakai, or to whatever LMS that you're using. And basically, that would come with a one-to-one class or a multitude of people who are coming to whatever training they're coming into, or just a normal consultation. So I thought I'd share my experiences being in this space of being an educational developer slash instructional designer. So yeah, I'm a 3-month baby or so. So yeah. So this is what I think we should do, because every time when people have a course, they usually have a start and an end. So that start usually is, welcome to my class. We're going to tackle this and this. And at the end of 6 weeks, 6 months, you'll get an assignment or an exam. And basically, how do you motivate teachers, lecturers to motivate their students to participate? And as in my job, how do I motivate both parties to actually be interested in using these different learning resources, and how they then add educational technologies on top of that? So usually I would start by asking you in the audience to tell me a story. Anyone who volunteers to tell a story, any story. It could be a joke, could be anything. Please indulge me. Anyone who's brave enough. I don't want to pick on my team that I came with from vets. Yeah, so I'd like someone, anyone, you're all shy? Come on. Come on. Please. I beg you. There'll be a prize. Okay, so usually I'll start with a story. Okay, Cheaper, please tell us a story.
Yeah, one day in a class, there was this little boy called Johnny. Johnny had a mother and a father. The mother was Christian. The father was from the School of A in the University of Penn. So he studied your biology and stuff, evolution. So one day Johnny got a homework from home to say you have to go and research when did life start and how did life start. So Johnny arrived at home, he found mom, he asked mom, yes or no, how can I do it? And mom said, okay. He explained the history of how life started. He explained the Bible part of it. He started with Adam and Eve and all those things. Unfortunately, she was busy cooking, then she had to finish the cooking part. And Dad came in, and Johnny took the homework back to the dad. He said, can you assist me here? So Dad was to talk about evolution, that the human being started being animal, the research in that. So those things. And then, so the mother was overhearing the conversation. So Johnny asked mom, but you said life started with Adam and Eve and start. So he said, your dad is telling you the part of his family.
Thank you, Cheaper. So basically, that would actually make everyone relaxed. For those who are thinking, I don't know how to use this technology, they're feeling more comfortable, while everyone who's helping during that workshop help them log in and help them do that. So usually you can employ it in different ways. But for me, that story is basically one part of a story that every one of us tell different stories every day. And every day we create new stories. And in a course, that course is based on a story. And that story is about Mathematics 101, Biology 101, and so forth. But that story has a start and an end. So that's how I basically then introduce the whole blended learning concept to lecturers, to students, and how they all can help each other learn further. So, like I said earlier, there's a start to a course, and there's an end to a course at some point. So, and then there's certain things that we need to consider as instructional designers or educational technologists, or however you want to title yourselves. So for me, it would be the pedagogy and technology, and a huge thing about constructive alignment. And then there's also establishing which components are best suited for an online engagement. And also, do we need open educational resources within that course, or don't we? So that would be those things that as an instructional designer, you would have to come knowing or have an idea of how to incorporate those and help your lecturer to do. So basically, also part of this is, let's say if I'm having a workshop on designing a blended course, these are the things that would come up in that course. But in the approach, that's for me how you actually hook the lecturers to come on board to test all of your different educational technologies, or all or some of your different blending experiences. So, and then first week I came into the job, you get people quoting all these things, and you're like, how, where, who came up with this stuff, and how do I actually apply it in class? Because in my 4 years of training on higher education, well, I don't really remember the lecturers actually explicitly showing me they've got these models, techniques within their courses. But how do I then motivate the lecturers use these techniques without overpowering them? Because sometimes I fear that we tend to go in with these terminologies and we say, Dick Carey says that, Bloom's learning taxonomy, and everyone goes, who are you talking about, and actually how practical is it in the course, and how practical can I use the stuff? And now we're going intro to Sakai 101, I click here, click here, click here, but actually, how do I actually use these learning frameworks into my class and motivate my students? And then coming back to the whole constructive alignment, you get your learning outcomes, your evaluations, your activities, your course objectives, your content and assessments. So there's huge contention from people when you tend to draw a straight line like this. Some would say, no, content comes first, learning outcomes come later, and all sorts. So at the end of the day, it's all a cycle. So, but the most important thing is that you have your learning outcomes that speak to every different part of your activity. But how do we as instructional designers or educational technologies enforce those to people so that they remember how to use them back in their class after they've clicked and clicked and clicked for 3 hours within a workshop? And now they go back to their class, they want to redesign their course, but where do they start? So for me, it's a basic simple. So I use the principles of animation. I'm going to skip this slide because it basically speaks about the same thing. So I'm going to use the principles of animation. So a couple of years ago, when I used to teach animation, stop motion animation, one of the things that you need to do is storyboard. So if you're doing a course, you're redesigning it or you're designing it from scratch, at some point you have to storyboard. But by showing that different applications of the same thing actually make life a whole lot easier. So that's my take on it. So I would use these principles of animation and storyboarding techniques. And this is for me my typical course. That's what I would want to have. Let's say the structural elements would be a welcome page, face-to-face, and maybe some parts of it online. But now online, I'm introducing my students to the admin side. So it's no longer welcome to class, but it's a feather on and adding on to that. So this is how I would typically structure the course. And then basically also show them that at any given point in time, if you structure your course and make little mannequins and say, I want my students to know this, and you draw little doodles and things like that, if I come in as an instructional designer, I understand your story. I become empathic, sympathetic to your story, and I'm able then to use those big words, Bloom's taxonomies and all that, back to your course and say, this part will go there, this part will go there. And then it becomes an interactive process. It's no longer about just clicking, clicking, clicking during a workshop, but it's clicking and doing within a workshop. Because during that story that one of the lecturers would have told is basically, I teach Maths 101, and this is what I want to do with this platform. So that's taking that story and repurposing it and applying these different techniques to it. So I would then take them through the whole course starts, introduction. Let's break it down further. And coming back to the principles of animation, I'm just going to use 3 of them for now, which is staging, anticipation, and arcs. So all those principles of animation actually teach you about life. You can draw in class, but at the end of the day, you need to stage a character. But you stage a character after you've storyboarded a character. So if you say, I want a character to walk from A to B, what's the background, how does the character look like, and all those things. But then it could be your course. How do I want my students to understand metamorphosis in biology? That's the staging of that. So when you get lecturers understand that simple nuance, it becomes easier for them to cooperate with you, and then you start exploring different ideas. So I would then say to them, basically my character design, coming back to my activities again, I'd need a character design, I'd need to know or employ different drawing techniques. For you, it might be employing different mathematical equations to achieve a certain result. But if I remember correctly in my maths class, I never got all the steps right because I would then be creative and find the answer, but I'd still be told it's wrong. So yeah, so I'd always get half the points. So yeah, that sucked some of the times. So then you go back to the content. So it's still a course structure, the content, what do we have in the content, still principles of animation. Those are the basic learning outcomes that you might want to have, but in each of those principles, you should have outcomes and what you expect them to do. So after taking through them, this process, you show it to them. And then I would say, I would have my keys, which are my stages, and then I have my arcs, which is the little drawings there. Let's say take a pendulum. If I want to animate it, I can't draw a straight line from left to right like that, because it won't look realistic. I'll show it to you now. So this is me confusing people now with the terminology. How the hell do you use it in class? How the hell do you do all those things? So this is the part that I would then find that as instructional designers, we get bogged down to this. The whole Bloom's evaluate, do that, the learning outcomes, but we're not actually getting into the meat of the content. So this would be my version of confusing them, and then also explaining to them that, a simple character design can start from right to left. It can start very simplistic form, and you can end up with a very sophisticated character. So in your storyboarding, you scaffolding your learning activities, your scaffolding, your formative assessments, your scaffolding, all those different things. So again, in animation, small changes make huge differences. So basically, if we take the same principles of animation, um, from your character design, from your storyboarding, all those are there, and then you'd have something like that. And now you've added all those different elements. I've staged my character, I've used my arcs, and I've shown you how I've transformed my storyboard into something that's actually usable. And then to your students as lecturers, then that's when you motivate your students that you can achieve, you can aspire to get to this level in your different formative assessments and so forth. So again, using the same arcs, the principle of a ball bouncing. This would be a typical example that we do in class. We draw in class, we will be face to face, but I expect my students to upload something like this in class online. And now this is when you introduce the technology and the different ways of achieving the same goal. So if we go back to the slide, I can have a student draw 20 pages and you can do a flip book that's still achieving the same outcome. But then to take it to the next level, this is when we introduce technology, and this is how you can use technology effectively. But then it's how you choose the technology and how effective that technology will be. So again, so Charlie Chaplin once said, tell them what you're going to do it, tell them that you have done it. That's how I see courses. You tell them what they're going to do, then you do it, and then they should show you what they can do. And you can show them what you can do. So for me, it's a two-way street. So they can aspire to get to your level or mastery level, or they have different levels that they can achieve as well. So I like that quote. So again, tell them what you're going to do it, and show them that you've done it. So in all those principles is basically you've employed, I've staged my character, I've used my arcs to show movement. So it's that process where even though you're repeating certain things, but you're approaching it in different ways, and the application is also different. So again, it's the same principle. You tell them what you're going to do and do it, and then the result might end up like this. And then let's say then you're explaining to them how to introduce different technologies. Now we've moved from face-to-face classes where we're drawing, and now I'm introducing different ways of using different technologies, which would be for the lecturers different technologies that they would need for their different courses. So then I would say the same thing that we did in class, it can be applied in a different way, which is using technology to explain that or achieve the same goal. Okay, in the interest of time, I'm going to move on right back. Okay, and then also the other way that to introduce to lecturers that you've got, we can achieve the same goal, the same principles are underlying, but the result could be different. So you saw how we use technology, but now you're combining technology and practical application. So there you go. Sorry. So basically, in that example, that's when I would bring in how defining assessment criteria is important. Because when I started, I was showing mostly drawings. But then, if not defining the right assessment criteria, you might end up getting something like that. Does that then mean it doesn't apply to the course, or the students haven't achieved what you set out them to achieve? So it's also then opening that debate on the assessment criteria and learning outcomes to say that all those principles were employed during that stop motion animation course, but this is the end result. The student didn't draw, but they decided to do a stop motion with using thumbtacks. So again, using all those principles, then I'd come back and then introduce to them, let's say we course designing, redesigning, or changing certain aspects of the course. I like the 10 laws of simplicity by John, where he introduces them in a linear format. I've just broken them down to make sense to me, saying that at some point of the course, you can choose to reduce certain clunky elements of a course and make them more efficient. Or if you've got a very advanced course, we could look at different learning pathways and the differences, and most important for me is the context. The context always drives how you approach helping the different lecturers as well. And then also coming down to an advanced course, someone who's already integrated different learning technologies and a blended model of working, but then they still want to improve and evaluate their course. This is how you would then do it. But at the end of the day, you're looking for that thing that sets your course apart from the next lecturer from a different university. So yeah, this is me. I think so. Thank you.